The Nelson Mandela Bay Council is expected to debate a motion of no confidence against the ANC's embattled Executive Mayor Eugene Johnson today. Johnson was dealt a major blow in her bid to keep the position yesterday when the Gqeberha High Court dismissed with costs her urgent application to interdict the special council meeting and remove the motion of no confidence from the agenda. The ANC-led coalition government will go to the council meeting with numerous challenges as some of its coalition partners have joined forces with the Democratic Alliance. SABC News reporter Lerato Fekisi has more for us. Thank you so much for your time, Lerato. Let's talk about what the future of Eugene Johnson looks like right now.
Well, the future of Eugene Johnson right now looks bleak because, like you said, Mqulisi, in your intro, that yesterday she was really dealt a very hard blow when the High Court ruled that her interdict to stop today's council meeting, where she could be possibly ousted as the mayor, couldn't hold ground, and she lost that bid. And today we are here at the Feather Market Hall in Gqeberha, a few hours or a few minutes away, where she could possibly not be the mayor of the metro. But Mqulisi, I think it's good for us, for you to understand just how the instability of coalitions has dealt a hard blow for the metro. In the past 6 years, when coalitions started in the metro in 2016, we have had about 6 mayors interchanging between various parties, coming in as mayors, and then within 4, 5, 6 months they're gone. Eugene has not even been here for a year, and already she's been ousted out. So the question now is, are coalitions working, especially when you look at the formation of coalition parties? We've got smaller parties, you've got bigger parties trying to come together with a common vision, but the question is, are they working, especially when they do hamper in terms of service delivery? By joining me this morning and bringing him into the conversation is political analyst Ongama Mtimka to break down the issues of coalition and whether they're working or not, especially also looking at the national context in terms of happening in Gauteng as well. Ongama, feels like a deja vu. We're here congratulating Eugene, and less than a year she's gone. In your opinion, you look at coalitions, and you've been here in the metro for the past 6 years, seeing mayors come in and out. Are coalitions really working, especially when you zoom into NMB?
Coalitions by design can work. We know that the multiplicity of political parties involved does affect the extent to which decisions can be made. However, the challenge is that you need political maturity for those to work. So, on paper, they're supposed to be the most accountable structure, better than a dominant party system. But precisely because we are sort of toddlers on the path of coalition politics as various cities in South Africa, we are finding the difficulties of political management as well as the ability to suppress the politics of private desires for the greater good being the ultimate acid test for whether or not coalitions can work in South Africa. And in fact, the experience so far is that while they may have potential, they don't last long, precisely because the margins between those who constitute coalitions and those that remain in opposition benches and councils become so narrow. Both the ANC and the Democratic Alliance in Nelson Mandela Bay have got 48 seats each, and at any given time need about 12 seats in order to remain secure as coalition leaders. And it's a challenging state of affairs, as we see, because even in Tshwane, city of Joburg, among others, the margins are not too big between a constituted coalition and the rest of the council.
Ongama, you speak about the issue of political maturity, which I think speaks a lot about the instability in the metro. There's been a dissatisfaction among smaller parties that when they come into coalition, for instance, with the ANC or the DA, becomes a DA-led coalition or an ANC-led coalition. So automatically, these two parties are assuming a superior role to the smaller parties. But we've seen the power of smaller parties in turning things around. How important is it for ANC and the DA, who obviously hold the majority, to have maturity in terms of saying, we hold the numbers, but your one vote is still important?
Well, it's not uncommon that in the politics of making and remaking institutions and political arrangements, that at the time that we start the process, people are at different lengths apart, And then, as the trial and error of governance happens, people get to learn about, the importance of the system and how the system is greater than its constitutive parts. So if you look at, for example, the tone of the DA, it's been the most accused of this practice. The tone of the DA leading up to this council meeting seems to have changed from the power-centric, we are the leaders and therefore we dictate the terms, to being one of relative openness, in terms of which it has been more amenable to, negotiating with parties in a coalition than it has been the case previously. If you look at the first term in office in 2016, they were too zero-sum in their approach and too assertive on the coalition. And I think that over time, with the experience of how that puts coalitions at risk of being, changed, they have kind of toned down on those demands. And I think that even the ANC too, even though you do find that sometimes the bullying tactics of especially the regional office of the party and City Hall, where you find that there's too much interference that puts other parties in discomfort, which brings us here, by the way, where you find that other parties are not happy with either a mayoral candidate or, in recent months, the chopping and changing of municipal managers. So it's an egg dance, if you like, and they've got to tread carefully. I think experience is going to improve the way in which political parties in South Africa manage coalitions, because they are here to stay, if you look at voter behavior.
Another phenomenon that we've seen recently, which is quite strange, is the issue of the EFF. 2 or 3 years ago, they were very adamant to say we will do anything to make sure ANC doesn't come back. But last week in council, the same EFF has now swapped seats and saying, in fact, we're going to vote that Eugene Johnson's not removed. Perhaps what's happening with the EFF in terms of nationally and then trickling down to the metros, we are saying now, in fact, we're going to make sure the DA doesn't come to power at all.
Sure, I think two things there. Parties in coalitions have got this trade-off to deal with: a particular idealism and the pragmatic issues of governing and emerging opportunities and threats from lived experience. While the EFF in the first term at a national level, as well as first term in local government, was careful in its strategic messaging and coalitions, I think that over time, based on where their attitude to ANC politics themselves, now, as well as perhaps some, experience in local government issues, as well as party political strategy, or in fact even personal strategies of EFF politicians, they've got into a stage where that tension between a particular idealistic position and pragmatic political choices on the ground has become narrow, and they can shift between that idealistic position of saying we're going to deal with a particular political party and not another. I mean, if you look at it, for example, it was the politics of the land a debate in Parliament that got them to vote the DA out, to participate in processes of wanting to vote the DA out in Nelson Mandela Bay. Likewise, even now, their openness to coalition with the ANC is as much about their influence, their desired influence on ANC politics, as it is about the pragmatic issues here in Nelson Mandela Bay.
Then lastly, Ongama, like I said, we have been debating the issue of coalition in the metro every single 4 or 5 months. We have a new mayor and people in the metro are literally much giving up in terms of coalitions. Just as an analyst, do you think that in 8 months' time we'll be back here again, swearing in a new mayor?
As long as political parties are too fixated on this idea that the executive mayoral system is the only way to go, and the power-centric nature of it, we are going to be here up until 2026 when the local government elections happen again. My view is that, and I think that MEC Ngata in the Eastern Cape has attempted to drive towards this direction. The only thing with him is that he's doing it at a time when it's politically opportune to save his own party from being kicked out. Otherwise, I've been a strong proponent of trying the executive mayoral system, in terms of which the members of the mayoral committee are constituted by all the parties in council, or as many parties as possible, than this idea of having one part of council being the coalition or the governing party and another being the opposition. Once you constitute an executive committee system, you have all parties represented, and then you create what is desirable in the first place, the holding of the executive accountable, precisely because you have dealt away with the divisions of who is the governing coalition, who is not, who is the opposition.
Well, that was political analyst Ongama Mtimka just breaking down to us the issue of coalitions in the metro, saying that they could work, but key to that working is going to make sure there's political maturity, especially within every single other party. So let's hang on to our feet and see if the Mayor Eugene Johnson will oust it out or she'll remain in her seat, but we'll still have to wait and see if that's going to happen. For now, let's go back to you in studio.
Look, Lerato, I think quite a critical matter here to observe, especially when I listened to the conversation that you were having just now there with Mr. Mtimka. It is really telling of the love-hate relations of coalition governments. What was likely to come out of today as far as Ms. Johnson's efforts are concerned, moving forward today after the debate?
It really looks like Mqolisi that her time in the office is up. Yesterday we spoke to ACD leader Lance Grootboom, and he said that he is going to put the motion forward. In terms of numbers, the DA with his coalition partners do have enough numbers to ensure that they remove the ANC from power, especially when you look in terms of the Speaker, Gqeberha High Court, who has a swaying vote, and last week his swaying vote led to the sitting of today's council meeting. So we are aware that should the two parties have a 60-60 vote, which they're going to have, his vote will be the deciding one, and his vote will go towards the DA and his coalition partners.
And, throughout your conversation, something that we also reflect on, as how it's mostly also the people that are affected, because ultimately it's matters of service delivery which are hindered by all of this. Talk to us about what the sense from the people on the ground is, if you've spoken to them.
Ironically, actually, Mqolisi, when we arrived here, myself and my colleague Natasha, as Major Traffic Officer, and he was saying that, I'm so tired of mayors being sworn in and out of the metro because people like us on the ground are being affected. Just if you drive into a township called Kwanobuhle in Uton and Gqeberha, half the street lights are not working. Yesterday we spoke to the acting shadow minister for water and sanitation in the metro, Annette Lovemore, and she was speaking about the sewage system in the metro being at its worst. We also look in terms of the streets, infrastructure is really falling apart. So if you trickle down to the people on the ground, service delivery policy in the past few months has been very much compromised. And if anything, people in the metro say they are watching their city literally fall apart every single day in terms of service delivery.
All right, Lerato Fekisi, thank you so much for that update.